This is Get Unstuck Radio Episode 3 Transformative Process at the Core of Your Belief with Elizabeth Stoian. Welcome to Get Unstuck Radio, the place to brainstorm with you on business and life strategy. To get unstuck with system, automation, and delegation. And also to get clarity for sustainable business and lifestyle. I'm your host, Mutita Panmook. Let's get unstuck. Hi everyone. So today we have a special guest this is another side of the world that I have never touched before. Well, I have been following somehow like the improving the self-belief for a while, but this is like another level. So please welcome Elizabeth Stoian with me, the founder of Pacts Integrity. Hi!
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm really happy. So the offline version, we actually chit-chat already for a while, but I told her that stop, let me record first because you have to tell everything again.
Totally okay.
Yeah, so I can see your passion in this, like totally in. So tell me about Pacts Integrity, how you do this full time, and what is the reason that you decided to do this job?
Yeah, very interesting. Pacts Integrity stands for Pacts means peace, integrity. Obviously, it's integration of all of who we are. It is related to the methodology that I facilitate in my business, which is called Psych-K. And this is a methodology that enables people to have more access to their own inner wisdom and inner power. It does this by increasing brain activity across both hemispheres. So in a sense, it integrates both of our hemispheres. It integrates the more logical part of us and also the more intuitive, feelings-based part as well, which is the sweet spot, because when the two communicate, we have more options in how we can make decisions that are better for us, that are not limited, in defaulting to the same patterns over and over. When we have more options, we actually can exercise free will, because we can only exercise free will if we have options that we can do, right? If we only have one option, that's not going to be your free will to choose it. You'll choose it by default. But now that you have different options, different ways of thinking, you can actually make your choice to live your life on purpose and to make conscious decisions. So in short, that's what Pacts Integrity does. That's what Psych-K does. And yeah, I arrived to it because I've always been into mindset and really working with people. And I was wondering, what makes the difference between someone who is successful and someone who isn't, someone who is happy and someone who isn't happy. I had my own journey throughout my life. I am 38 and I've lived.
Oh, you still look very young. Trust me.
I feel it. But I can tell, from my 20s to my 30s, like even my teenage years and all of that. And I had 2 small businesses before. I had another part-time business. I did manage for, an international corporation. And I worked with a lot of people. And within my team, I was always really like people watching in a way, and people studying and trying to understand where they were coming from and how they were developing. And I was a health coach for a while, where I worked with people, assisting them in losing weight. And I could see people actually doing the system and losing maybe 60, 70, 80 pounds over time, and get maybe within like 5 or 10 pounds of their goal weight and kind of freak out, because this was a different part of life that they had never been to, and maybe put the brakes on that program and like gain 15 pounds or 20 pounds. And it was clear that wasn't a program. It was something that was going on. And what was really hard for me as a coach, because a lot of coaches put their sense of how successful they are in through the lens of how successful their clients are. I'm not saying everyone does, but for me at that time, I really wanted my clients to succeed, and I could see the potential succeeding, and we could talk about the ramifications, the mindset ramifications of everything. And they would agree. They would absolutely nod at me, and they would, say, yeah, this is what's happening. And then they would do the same thing. So it was very frustrating, very puzzling to me. And then a little while ago, I was actually listening to Bruce Lipton, which we talked about. You're familiar with him. He had a video on the differences between the conscious and the subconscious aspects of the mind. And when he said that, it completely lit up for me, because that's where we all talk about the things that we know logically make sense and are good for us. And we set our goals over there, right? Like in that conscious part of our mind. And then we wake up the following morning and we do the same routine, right? Like it's the
I know, yeah.
over and over, right? We go for the same coffee, the same drive-through, right? And it's like, why? If you know this, right? Like, you know what's good for you. Why are you doing something that is not supporting you, that's actually limiting you? And the answer is the subconscious aspect of our mind, which apparently runs about 95% of our decisions in terms of our thoughts, our feelings, therefore our actions, and therefore our results. Because you have your beliefs. Those beliefs generate thoughts with feelings, right? You make decisions, you take actions, and those actions give you results. So if you want different results, you have to take different actions. And if you find yourself unable to take different actions that are good for you, that are self-supporting, you have to go back to the the initial, not cause, but the initial correlation that is internal, because there is a correlation between our outer reality and our inner reality. They may or may not be caused by each other, but they are definitely related, right? So that's where Psyche comes in. As soon as I heard the word Psyche, Bruce mentioned it, I was on the internet immediately going, I gotta get me some Psyche. And I booked myself a session with a facilitator who happened to be an instructor as well. Earlier about facilitators and instructors. I'm a facilitator. That means that I can facilitate the process for someone else, but I cannot teach it to other people. She was also certified to teach it, right? And that may be in the cards, at the later date for me, but as of now, I'm really focused on facilitating. So it was very interesting because it's a very simple process. It's brilliant in its simplicity, and it works. And I've always been someone who is very open-minded, but at the same time, I want to see the proof in the pudding. I don't want the results to depend on someone believing, like, oh, you have to believe. Like, I want the process to work for everyone if it's the right process for them. So I entered it with hope, a bit of skepticism. I understood the idea behind it, but there's a difference between theory and actually something working, right? Like something can sound amazing. So I didn't really know what to expect. I had done some hypnosis a couple years back, and that wasn't really the right fit for me. It just was a bit underwhelming, even though I worked with a very nice hypnotherapist, $400 per hour, all of that stuff. It just didn't hit the spot for me. So I was like, okay, let's see how Psyche works. Bruce says it's awesome. And it was very interesting. The first belief I ever implemented in that session and ever was, I love myself and all that I am. And I thought I had done a pretty good job, getting to the point to love myself through all the mindset work that I had done. And it turns out that my subconscious wasn't agreeing to it. It was just one of those, nope. In Psyche, we have a yes or a no. We don't have like a gray area in between that. It's a yes or a no.
Okay. So for those people who cannot make decisive decision,
your subconscious will tell you yes or no. It's not yes-ish.
So definitely it's gonna be no every time if you not say yes, right?
Yeah. I mean, that really helped me a lot in life, that lesson right there. If it's like, it's 90%, it's not 100%. So yeah, my subconscious was like, oh girl, you don't love yourself so much. And we implemented that. And I was going through the process, right? I had my eyes closed. There's, a process where we use kinesiologic movement, just because both brains of the hemisphere control the opposite side of the body. So when we put our body together in certain positions, we actually start creating connections in our brain, which sounds pretty fantastic. I wish I knew more about the science behind it, but I don't. I just felt it work. And I could feel this weight lifting off, and just this sense of peace and absolute like acceptance for who I was, all of who I was. Because I went to that session telling that facilitator that, I hold space for everyone at work, right? I was still employed at the time. I had a team, I had a good job, I was making money, I loved the company I worked for. And I said, like, it's so easy for me to accept everyone for who they are, but it's so hard for me to really show up fully. And I show up as who I think they want me to be. And I know logically that is not okay. Like, it's not okay for me and it's not okay for them, but I'm not able to do it. And through that, right, like we found the belief of like my not accepting parts of me and my not loving parts of me. And when we implemented that belief, it literally changed my world, because I've been showing up. This is who you see is what you get. Like, this is it. So during that session, we did a couple more beliefs, very, very interesting. And I kept talking about how I hold space for people at work, and I love, supporting people. My whole calling in life is to support people to step into their own power, which is very ironic because that's what I was trying to do my entire life, right? For myself, we always try to heal other people when in fact we're trying to heal ourselves. But through that process, I've gotten pretty good at the process, right? Because like we're our hardest client, right? And when I realized this works, like this actually makes a difference, I could feel in the next week and week and a half, and like just going through that, because it was just such a different way of perceiving myself and just kind of making different decisions in a way, this ability. And I was like, oh my God, like this is life changing for me, right? Within that session, talking about holding space, the instructor actually said, in Psyche, we have a word and it's called Isimetak. It's an Inuit word that means keeper of sacred space. Because as facilitators, we don't tell the paying partner, the client, what to think, what to do. We don't dictate what's right for them. We hold sacred space that's safe for them to connect with who they are and to embrace their inner power. And that is what facilitators do. It's like, I don't say this very often, but I think you're a facilitator, you just haven't been trained yet. So she let me know, she was actually holding a basic workshop to learn the process and to facilitate for others within, I would say, less than 2 weeks. So less than 2 weeks, I was going to Boston.
Oh.
And that's how my journey started. Long story short, that's how I got to Psyche, and it's been a journey since then. Let me tell you, it's been very interesting. It's a whole new level of consciousness. I've since taken obviously the basic workshop, the advanced workshop, which is does that really align you. The master's facilitators workshop, and also the health and well-being workshop. And I took them like within a couple of weeks of each other. I wanted to, like, once I started, I was like, I need to know all of this. I need to do this. And, I feel better qualified in a way as well, because you can facilitate from the basic workshop in person. At advanced, they actually teach you how to facilitate online, which is what I wanted to do. I love working with people from all over the world. That's in my dream. So now I have clients all the way from California, all the way through the US, from Europe, from Australia. It's awesome. Yeah, so it's been a journey. The workshops are taught in person, never online. I know a lot of people want to know this on the internet. I see the comments on YouTube. I see questions everywhere in terms of where is the book so I can learn Psyche from a book. You're not going to learn Psyche from a book. It is such a complex and so deeply changing and moving modality that it is always taught in person. And Rob Williams, the originator of Psyche, really cares about keeping the integrity of this methodology. And every single facilitator that you work with and every single instructor has been taught in person. It's not just the know-how, the how to do Psyche, like the going through the motions that is taught at these workshops. It's also, and obviously you have the feedback of the instructor who corrects your mistakes, which is great. It's a safe space, so you can actually learn things properly. But facilitators go through a transformation through these workshops because we come with our real issues. And generally they are somewhat smaller groups. So like for my basic, we were 8 people there. So we got individual attention. Health and well-being can be like 40 people at some point, because it's not taught very often. But again, that is one of the most advanced, quote unquote, advanced workshop, so you know already the basics, so you don't need that much individual attention, but you still work with your peers. This is for real. Like, it actually does things to transform you as a facilitator. So when we show up in sessions, we are able to hold space and not really, having appropriate responses, or, not be there for our paying partners, because holding space sounds like such a simple thing, but truly holding space for someone to step into who they are is such an honor, and it is so sacred. And this is not therapy, but it's profound. People cry, people, it's just how it is. People celebrate, there's the whole rainbow of emotion that is absolutely okay. So yeah, that's why you're not going to find psyche in a book.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have touched base many important point that like I also discover by myself somehow. First of all is the holding space for others. In that sense, I believe that if you not unlock yourself in that issue, you cannot help others in that part. Anything, even financial, like if you still have financial block, you cannot make sales. Like it's the real thing, like real thing. And I have been experienced that personally, so I kind of understand. And also like when I don't feel like I'm enough or something, I cannot coach, I cannot give them at the full potential that I would like to. So I agree, like totally agree with that. And also in terms of like shift the belief, I don't know the framework that you do, but like this is still that I have to fight with myself every single day, almost every single action. Like, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do another way. Like I have to stop myself to make the right decision for myself at that time every day. Almost everything that my second thoughts coming up, like my laziness coming up and stuff, I have to fight with it every single day. So it's a process, I understand, and it does work, because literally just like someone who know nothing but like I want to be better, it's already changed dramatically. To be honest, my parents noticed that, like at least some close ones noticed that. So if I got someone to hold hands and walk further, that would be a long way to go. And because if according to Dr. Bruce, we have no ceiling, right? We can just like always exceed. And yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I obsessed with this thing as well. I have been watching a lot of YouTube, because like there was a time that I was very depressed and also having a very bad anxiety, and I need to do something with myself. So instead of stay in bed and looking at the ceiling, so I just find something that at least I educate myself in that sense to be a better person and just fight with it. Yeah, it's been a hard journey for me as well to be who I am today, but I'm glad I made the right decision to fight with my own thought somehow. Yeah, so just
I
sharing.
relate 100%, what you're saying, and I thank you for being so frank and so open. A lot of people don't talk about this, especially in the age of social media, where we see all the shiny pictures online and everybody's on an island, right? And like, oh, I made, $100,000 this month, right? Very few people have the guts to come out and say, you know what, it's been a struggle and I'm still figuring it out. And that's the real truth for most of us, and it's very wise what you said, and it is a fight, because I think most people have been at a low point in their life, whatever that low point is, however they define it. And God knows I've been through a lot of low points, let me tell you. But there, I will never say that, psyche is the answer to everything, or that it's right for everyone, or that it solves everything, right? But like you mentioned, like fighting with yourself, it does work. It sucks. Right? That's just how it is. Like I've fought with myself for 10 years to move from one point in my life to the next point in my life, to and it works. It's not, psyche is not the only way to change your life, right? Like, and psyche doesn't change your life, it just creates the potential. But what I would say, and to that, just to make the distinction between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and what what works with the subconscious mind, right? Because the conscious mind, we can have this conversation all day long. It's a fantastic conversation. We're learning, right? We read the book, we took the courses, life didn't change, right? We're waking up the next morning, right? We were saying before, we get up on the same side of the bed, we brush our teeth the same way, we get the same coffee, right? We do the same things. So what is the difference? And what's the purpose of that subconscious mind? Just to delve into it a little bit, Bruce Lipton calls it as being a tape recorder. And when we're little and we're learning to walk, like we're literally like, oh, I have a right leg and I'm going to put it here, and I have another left leg and it's going to go here. And it's like going, okay, a couple months later, I know how to walk. I'm not thinking about it. My subconscious mind takes over so that I can go think of something else consciously, right? It's the same like driving. When you're driving, it's like turn light on, make a right, do this, right? And then after you've done it for a couple of years, your subconscious takes over, right? You're talking to the person next to you about the groceries, somebody's cutting you off in traffic, you're yelling at them, right? And your subconscious is still driving, right? So the role of the subconscious really is to learn things, to take them as, okay, this is the rule of how we function in this world, this three-dimensional world. And these are the rules, and that's how I'm going to go by them. It doesn't judge whether it's good or not. It's what you taught it the first time. So when we're little, we have this ability to absorb information, right? We are in majority theta waves in our brain waves, which are waves that are very friendly towards learning, towards intuition and imagination, right? So we're absorbing information. What does the subconscious think? This is how the world is. I am going to extract these rules, put them in the tape recorder, and from now until forever, or until you tell me otherwise, that's how we are going to behave. So if you're absorbing something like, I don't know, mom and dad are yelling at each other, and subconscious goes, that is how, couples function. Fantastic. Noted, right? If you're living in a place of scarcity, which a lot of the world does, right? And it's like, oh, we gotta, save the pennies, and there's never enough. What does your subconscious learn about money? You gotta hold on to the freaking pennies, right? So from those thought patterns, right, you have your belief. They're going to generate your thoughts and your feelings about whatever the topic is. You're going to take actions based on those thoughts and feelings, and you're going to get the results. So these beliefs are never going to give you a different result, right? Like you cannot have a belief that couples argue and have a happy relationship, right? Like full of harmony, right? Maybe some people who argue are happy. I'm not gonna be the judge of that, but if that's your belief, that is the core of what your subconscious is thinking. So in order to, if you want a different result, like we were talking about before, right? Like you have to change the actions. But if the action is very hard for you to change because you have the same triggers, the same, right? Like when we're in a relationship, you yell. When like that person does something, you yell, right? And the other person yelled at you, yell back, right? Like if you're just snapping to the same reaction, you got to go back to the core and kind of explore that and see where it is. So that's the job of the subconscious. It's just recording things, right? And like you said, you had these habits of not doing what you've been doing to change your life, right? You can, as an adult, absolutely change your subconscious mind. And the more we move our bodies in a different way, the more we build these habits, the more your subconscious is catching on. That's the long way, okay? And it's not to say if you're doing Psyche, you're never going to have to practice a habit. You still do, because the habit is going to give you the results. But there is a difference between struggling every single day with a habit and going along where like, all right, this is what I'm doing.
Shortcut.
Right? Yeah. Because progress is going to be outside of your current comfort zone. Unfortunately, that's just how it is for all of us.
Oh my gosh, I could imagine that.
Right? Like that's how it is. It's, where you are, where you're comfortable, where your subconscious is like, this is what I know. Right? You're like, yeah, it's nice and cozy. And that's why people stay in bad situations. And I've been there. I've been in relationships that weren't good for me, and I've overstayed my, not that I should have been maybe in the first place, but, I've overstayed. We've been in jobs, we've been in, close relationships, we've been in situations where we don't want, we've been living in cities that we don't want to live in, right? But we stayed because it's comfortable, and we have a human need for safety, And that's totally natural. We're going to seek safety and routine and all of those things. But if that routine doesn't serve you, you're going to want to change it, right? So for that to happen, you kind of have to do something different in order to get something different. But if you're so terrified, or if you're so uncomfortable doing something else, or you're lost, right, you're going to have a much harder time, right? So when we're expanding our comfort zone a little bit, it's going to be a lot easier, and it's not going to be such a struggle to do things, you know? And that's why I like Psyche fitting into that, because again, Psyche doesn't solve the world's problems, but something as simple as, you know, loving yourself, something as simple as being confident, something as simple as trusting yourself, those are core beliefs that make a world of difference in you taking a risk outside of your comfort zone, however big or small it is, right? And we're not going to talk about how, you know, risks can be dumb and the risks can be educated risks, but regardless, if you want something different, you have to step outside of your comfort zone, or you have to expand that comfort zone. And that's the other thing. When you start being the person, like you said, you know, I'm no longer that person that's staring at the window. I'm the person who does this. I'm the person who shows up for myself. When your identity starts shifting and you become the person that like, oh, I'm okay with, you know, taking somewhat of a risk, the possibilities open up like nobody's business. The opportunities that you are observing coming into your life will make more sense. I do believe that we have opportunities around us all the time, but it's our limitations in observing them, right? So like if we're not able to see them, and then it's like, you know, the fear is holding us back here and we don't know how, and we're probably not gonna take that route, when in fact maybe that could have been life-changing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, no argument here. Like, just listen patiently. Yeah, I mean, totally. Wow. I have two questions. First one, after they finish the process of Psych K, I still cannot say that word. I'm apologize. What next for them to keep the transformation remains? Because that would be the hardest, you know.
That's the question.
Change is fine. Like, you can change right away, but to remain the change, that's what they pay for, transformation.
Yeah. Fantastic question. I love that. So just to backtrack a little bit, since I'm the queen of long answers here, but I want to give a comprehensive, you know, answer here. Psyche is a protocol that we follow that follows kinesiologic movement, right? And what it feels like, what it's been described, is a mental, emotional, or physical shift. So that's how you know that the new belief has been implemented. You actually feel differently when you think about that topic. So if you come in with, like in my case, I felt this like dissonance between who I was and who I was showing. And whenever I thought about it, I had this like almost like a fear, almost like, right, like, oh, I'm going to be judged, or like people are not going to understand it, or it's not good for them. That was the other thing, like they couldn't handle me, right? So that was the initial state in which I was. After implementing the belief that I love myself and all that I am, and I show up fully, right? This is who I am. When I thought about saying what I wanted to say, when I wanted to say, my fear before that was, I'm going to say something that's going to hurt the other person, or they're going to judge me. What I found was the reality after the belief was implemented was that I could say what I wanted to say and nobody got offended because it wasn't coming from that place. Like, it was just a complete perception, right? Because I knew I was like a decent person that is not out to hurt people. It's not. So I found a way, somehow my brain found a way to always express who I was in a way that was well received, right? To the right people. So that was a permanent change. Like, I didn't have to do anything more than I'm showing up and I am who I am. Here I am, people, right? Like, so the belief is there and it's permanent. Unless something else happens, God forbid, where, you know, you're in an extreme situation and, you know, somebody, like, I don't know, does something and you're completely scared to be yourself again. Chances are that's not going to happen, right? So the belief is permanent. If we are working with something a little bit more specific, let's say that you come to a session, you have a terrifying fear of public speaking. Let's say that. You've had a presentation or a debate in high school, for example, and you got roasted and you're just like completely blocked on that. And now you have to show up for your business and go public speaking. And every time you think about it, you're like sweating and dying, right? So we'll work with the fears. We'll figure it out, right? Like we'll start peeling the onion layer, because there's always more than one belief associated with a topic. But let's just say, for the sake of the conversation now, there's only one belief, right? So we work with it. Fantastic. You feel good. You feel the weight lifting. Oh, I feel good. Fantastic. We, high fives. Now what, right? Like, you're gonna go back to your desk at work and sit there and it's like, all right, I've always been comfortable at my desk, right? How do you know that when you go public speaking, you're not gonna be sweating and dying, right? So what is the simplest, easiest action step that you can take as soon as possible to be in front of people and see that you're actually okay, right? Like, because it's a very different situation, right? Like, now you're used to experiencing certain feelings and experiencing these things, and now it's kind of bizarre that you don't really feel that way, but you kind of, like, your conscious mind has to catch up with your subconscious, like your subconscious registered it. So what would be like examples of what you do? You can go give a toast. Maybe you go out with a couple friends, right? And you're in a restaurant or somewhere and you go, hey, clink, 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 let's drink to, whatever. That's being in front of people, speaking and having the attention on you, right? It's not exactly being on stage, but it's an easy thing. You can do that afternoon or the following night, right? Or you can go give a presentation at work with your buddies, right? Like that, hopefully you are friendly with, right? Hey, 10 people in a conference room, let me go and I'll do this. But now you're still in front of people. You do those 2-3 things and you're like, all right, this is cool. Like, I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm actually having a good time, right? You're getting good feedback. Your conscious mind is already like, oh, okay, we can do this. This is not a problem. Your subconscious is like, yeah, of course, buddy. That. And then you can actually go be on stage, right? So it's literally like our subconscious beliefs get activated when we are in situations that call for a response from them, right? If you were coming in because you're terrified of spiders, right? You can't really go find a spider that afternoon. Hopefully you're not going to go in the garden, but you can be aware of the next time you see a spider, before you were like, oh my God, these are like horrible creatures. And now you're like, oh my God, they're cute and fuzzy, right? So it depends on what we're working with. Most beliefs that we implement can have an action step associated with them. That's what we call them in the psyche. When we encourage people to take action steps.
Supportive action, right?
Yeah. Just so the conscious mind catches on and you actually know that you're able to do that, right? Because here's the kicker. We all have so much potential within ourselves. Oh my God, we have so much potential and power, but we don't actually even think to take advantage of that, right? So when you take a small action step, even if it's small, it's in the right direction, you'll see that it's going to naturally progress. And should you want to go on that trajectory, that can be life-changing.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the answer. But also it's about the trigger, that how you can stand on the uncomfortable part with those triggers that happened before in the past, and how it would affect the change that you already transformed, right? In that sense. So that would be personalized depending on each person again. Yeah, but that makes sense. So it leads to my second question. I believe that this is everything here that we're talking about is self-awareness. It's about ourselves. So from inside to outside. But we live in a society. So in that sense, once we change, and I also believe in once we change the action, that we also reflect to others, environment will change, our cycle will change, community will change, friends will change. It, like you said, is open to the new opportunities, to the new world, because we already transformed. And that's totally happens to many people who have transformation in life, including me. However, how that person expect things to change, because if the self is already transformed, or let's say upgrade in that cool way, but you still have to live in the same society, which actually might not fit with you. you know?
Yeah, excellent questions.
How would you guide your clients in that way? I mean, I think this is very important because after finished, however the framework and however we work with, we want to follow up the result because we want to make sure that our clients is safe in the next journey that we already open with them, not for them, but with them.
Yeah. That's an excellent question. I love your questions. So very good point. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When we change, our world changes, and collectively, we are always co-creating, all of us, right, on the planet. We're co-creating this reality that we're in, right? Even though everybody's reality is personal, right? It's perceptions, but we're co-creating this dynamic of how we all interact with each other. A couple of things in terms of psyche, we always approach the process with openness and curiosity. We don't attach a certain result to it. We focus more on the process, and this is very different from what today's Western society is about, which is much more results driven and oriented, right? Like, I want 2, that therefore I have to add 1 and 1 and I get 2, right? Whereas in psyche, we kind of go like, okay, where are you? You're at 1. Okay, you kind of want to get at 2. Let's see how we can bridge that and where your own wisdom is taking you. With our conscious mind, it's very easy to think that this is what we want, and that's what free will is, and that's totally okay. Like, if you have a goal, it's work towards that goal. But there's this part of when you get in touch with yourself and that potential opens up, right? This peace arrives and this awareness and calm and acceptance of who you are settles in. And you can still have goals, but you aren't as attached to them, because most people, when they set a goal, they don't want necessarily the goal, they want the feeling and the realization that comes with the goal. So let's say that you want a high-speed car, right? Fantastic. You want the high speed. Why do you want the high speed car? Do you want to show off to your buddies because everybody thinks that this is the latest and the greatest? Do you want the speed of the car? Do you want the wind in your hair, right? Like when you drive down, like, what is it that you want about that car? It's not wrong to have the car. You can absolutely have the car. Maybe that's, you have a passion for it, right? Like it's a physical, tangible thing that you absolutely love. But if you wanted for the reason of, I want to show off, for example, and I'm not saying that's a bad reason, but it's just as an example, right? You want to show off its status. And now you have this absolute understanding of who you are, that you're already badass, right? Like, you're awesome the way you are. You're integrated, you're good. Your priorities now might actually shift, and you're wanting to do something with your life might not be based on what others think, might actually be based on your own inner calling. You can still absolutely be successful, right? And if you have that drive and that calling, you will be, but the way you define it might change. So that's why we change it. And it's not it sounds like, oh my God, there's a loss there of like, you wanted this big goal and now you're not going to get it. That's not the case. It's just, there may be a better way for you to achieve that absolute inner peace and success and outer success, because they do correlate, and also to do it an easier way. And that's where the beauty of actually integrating all of who you are comes into play. Because when we are thinking from the left brain, from the conscious level of I want this, we're only thinking with part of ourselves, right? But when everything comes together, your results can be absolutely mind-blowing and magnified, right?
I know.
So, yeah, so
I already feel that after I talk to you.
You have to be open, and that's why, and that's why we were talking about, marketing this business. It's not necessarily a results-driven business. It is a process-focused protocol that we're working with that absolutely gives you more access and potential to the potential that you have already. So that's the first part of the answer, in terms of, how, like how, in terms of, how do you achieve your goals and all of that, right? You're going to change, right? Like you're upgrading, like you said, it's your next level of who you are. And that's going to change the way the world responds to you, because now you're on a different frequency, whether or not you believe in the frequency, energy, all of that stuff. You know, even symbolically speaking, you're dialing into something else. You're focusing on something else, right? Like right now, you're going from poor little me or whatever the case was. And most of my clients are not like coming from that place. You know, they know that they have an ability to change their lives, so they're not victims that way. But you're coming from like, you know, I can't do this or whatever the case is, to now I can, right? I see the possibility of me, because that's the whole thing. Like, we don't think something is possible for us. Oh yeah, it's possible for other people. It's not possible for me because I had this background, because I don't know this, because blah blah blah, I don't have the money, I don't have whatever the excuses are, right? But now you're like, oh my God, there's a possibility I can do this, right? So you're changing, you're taking actions. You're going to be focusing on other things instead of sitting in your room, like you said, watching the ceiling, feeling mopey all day long, you know, feeling tired, or whatever the case is, of like, oh, you know, this is just like not working, you know, and, you know, making excuses and complaining, right? You're not focusing on that. Now you're talking about a whole different thing. How am I going to get there? What am I going to do? What about this? Ooh, I had a great experience today. Oh, you know what? This didn't feel good today, but you know what? Instead of reacting like I used to react, like, your focus is going somewhere else. So automatically people that are interested in this are going to be attracted to you, right? Because people who are very results driven, or very, very, you know, like on the more positive side of the spectrum, they don't really want to hang out with people who are mopey. It's just how it is.
Absolutely.
How many people want to that's, I've been there, you know, I've been like through the whole rainbow of, you know, of human emotion, and there's nothing, I'm not bashing human emotion, you know, I'm not saying that feeling lousy and having a bad day is a bad thing. Like, it serves you. But when the majority of who you are now transitions to focusing on something else, you are going to naturally interact with people who are interested in that. And you're going to find them interesting, and they're going to find you interesting. So to answer your question, as far as like, you know, you still have to live in the world, absolutely. But the world is pretty infinite, right? Like, not to say infinite, but there's a couple billion people on the planet, right? So the chances of you finding your people at the level that you are through your process is pretty high, you know, especially with the ability to be online and talk to people and, you know, find your tribe, quote unquote. You're good, you know. it's almost like, okay, who do I want to hang out with, right? Like, I'm gonna shift to that vibration. And in terms of existing relationships, that's an interesting one.
Oh yeah.
That's, you know, the nice thing about going through this process, and obviously, I mean, I've done a number of beliefs and things like that, and, you know, balances, and it also opens up your potential, you know, beyond just the actual belief. It just kind of like takes you to a different perspective, to a different vantage point. I find myself very accepting of people where they are, and I think a lot of people going through this process, I'm trying to think about my clients and the feedback that I get. It's pretty consistent, where people message me and they say, you know, I used to get so worked up when people used to do this, and I was feeling like they were taking advantage, and I used to snap back. But, you know, something weird happened today. This woman did this, and actually I was okay, because I realized that it was on her. It wasn't because of me. So we become more accepting of people, with the caveat that we become a lot more, again, depending on what we work with, but most people going through a couple of sessions, they move towards that point pretty consistently, in terms of centering yourself and establishing your standards. And that's not to say boundaries. People always talk about boundaries. I think boundaries is something that's pretty forced, where you're just kind of trying to keep people away. But what happens when you're centering yourself and you're stepping into who you are, and you know what's yours and what's not yours, and what is acceptable to you and what isn't, because you don't jive with it, people don't like really threaten your boundaries anymore. They just don't kind of come close to them. It's just something that we kind of put out. And also, if somebody says something, there is no problem in expressing what you are about in that moment in a very clear manner, without that charge of, no, I'm right, you're wrong. It's just a lot more understanding. So depending on who you're in relationships with, within your, you know, your circle, your perceptions of them can shift, and it can be a lot easier on you in terms of not suffering from, that tension and resistance. But it's also empowering because this is who you are. And at some point, if somebody doesn't like it, that is their decision, right? And that whatever they do, you have to be okay with it. And it's easier for you to accept that. Can we guarantee, results in terms of you're going to be with this person, you're going to get along? Not really. Like, that's not how it works. There's still free will in the world, thank God. But we can work with your perception of those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, this is like good stuff. 1 hour non-stop. You're talking non-stop. I mean, I just keep listening because like I love this thing so much. I can talk about this every day.
Well, you know to find me.
Same here. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for sharing this life-changing framework in terms of shortcut with us today. And yeah, I mean, all the best to you and your journey, and let's keep in touch. So in case anyone interested to work with you in the future, how can they find you?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. And by the way, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, because I honestly don't think there's a lot of information out there that's a little bit more detailed. I do my best to put out as much as I can in terms of content without sounding salesy, because that's not what it's about. But I know when I was searching for information, there wasn't a lot out there, because it's an experiential process. It's not informational. But thank you so much, and thank you for the very good questions. It's been amazing to discuss things with you, and anytime you want to find me, you know where to find me. And for everyone else who is interested, if they have questions, as to whether or not this is the right thing for them, please by all means message me. You can go directly to my website and book sessions and packages there. That is called pactsintegrity.com. So that's PAX integrity spelled out .com. But don't book sessions unless you are 100% sure that this is the right thing for you. If it is, fantastic. I will talk to you soon. But if you have questions, you can find me on Facebook as well. It's my name, Elizabeth Stoian. So it's Stoian. By all means, send me a friend request and a message saying that you are interested in Psyche sessions or subconscious belief transformation sessions. If you are not familiar with how to spell the name of it, is totally fine. And ask me questions, because I don't necessarily work with anyone that messages me about it, just because I do want it to be a win-win from the beginning. And that means that it's 100%. I'm not here to convince you that this is the right thing for you. You have to make your own decision. But I do want to make sure that I answer all of your questions so that you're going in with the right expectations for the scope of the work that we're going to do. If you believe that you're going to work with me and you're going to grow wings and fly, that is beyond the scope of the of the session, right? But it's just such an abstract process and work that I want to be as clear as possible so that you get the most out of these sessions. And also for me to make sure that we're comfortable working together, not I'm the right facilitator for you. The universe tends to bring people together, without much much mistake there, and that's certainly been the case so far. But just for the conscious mind to kind of be okay with it, definitely don't hesitate. Shoot me a message. Let me know what your challenges are, what you're dealing with. Everything stays between us. And I'll tell you if that's something that we can explore together, and what the best course of action is. And if it's not, I'll also tell you that, because, we want you to be as successful and happy as possible. So those are the two ways to get, to work with me, pixintegrity.com. There's frequently asked questions on there as well. And then if not, on Facebook, I answer within 24 hours usually.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, and I look forward to conversations later on, okay?
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Get Unstuck Radio. If you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new show every week. I would love to if you left us the review. If you want to get unstuck, check my 5-step entrepreneur freedom formula for scaling your business without sacrificing your lifestyle at worldwideweb.extraordinarylybymutita.com/freedom. Speak then.